Hi everyone, my name is David Rao and I'm the music teacher that blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Instagram, on Pinterest, on Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. I'm so excited to be sharing with y'all today. Today my plan is to talk a little bit about how I integrate children's literature into my classroom, and then I'll be sharing more about my fourth grade lessons, sort of do a deep dive into my fourth grade lessons, which is sort of oddly, a lot of my lessons are bird themed this week, so I thought, why not pull out my bird shirt to go perfect? But my fourth grade lessons are about chicken on the fence post, so I think these are swallows, but I'm going to say that it's on theme. So before I get into my lesson plans, I wanted to share just a couple quick things. First of all, you can find all of my content, things that I share on my blog, which is makemomentsmatter.org. If you want to see all of the links about the resources and lesson plans and sort of things that I've talked about in this specific video, you can find those if you click the video tab, and then there's a drop down that says Musical Mondays Recap 2019-2020, and you'll find all the links there. Also, it's just linked in Instagram, it's my link in profile, and on Facebook, it's at the bottom of the caption for this video. So you should be able to find all of those things pretty easily there if you're interested. Also, if you're interested in continuing this conversation after the video ends, you can join my my Facebook group, which is Every Moment Matters Music Education Community. And if you click in there, you can continue on the conversation, talk about resources you've heard, ask questions about what you saw in this video or just anything, and make lots of really cool connections. So you can find that if you look on Facebook for Every Moment Matters Music Education Community. Oh, and a couple quick things. In just a couple weeks, I'm so excited. I'm going to be in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm presenting with the Central Arkansas ORF chapter. I hope you, if you're in the area, I hope you'll come and take part in that community and be a part of that workshop. I'm really, really excited about that. That's on September 21st, and that's in Little Rock, Arkansas. If you're interested, there is a link on the links page. You can click on, learn about the event, figure out where it's at, figure out how you can get connected, and come and be a part of that workshop that day. That's with the Central Arkansas ORF chapter. And then on October 19th, I'm presenting with the Tidewater area ORF chapter, and that is going to be at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm really excited about that workshop as well. It should be a really fun time. So if you're in Little Rock in September, or if you're in Virginia in October, I hope that I can see you in person at one of those events. It'd be so much fun. It's always fun to go to ORF chapter workshops, but I hope that you'll, if you're in the area, you'll take a leap of faith and come and have fun with us those days. Okay, so my plan today is to talk a little bit about how I integrate children's books into my classroom first. In last week's video, I did a rundown of all my kindergarten through fifth grade lessons for the week. So if I did that again this week, it would just be basically a copy of what I did last week. So instead of doing that, I'm going to take a little bit of time to sort of go off topic, talk about some other music ed stuff before I get into my deep dive. And the deep dive, where I just run you through everything I do in a lesson, is going to be on fourth grade this week. And I'm going to be talking about a few really fun songs, a garden song, Farmer's Dairy Key, and then Chicken on the Fence Post. It should be a blast, so I hope you'll stick around for that. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk just a little bit about children's literature. I've done several videos, not the Musical Monday videos, but sort of extra videos on other days, about books I'm planning on using for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I wanted to talk about how I'm going to use those, because I've shared a little bit about the books that I'm using and why I'm using them and some of the cool things about them, but I wanted to talk about how I'm actually going to use them in the classroom. Because for the first couple years, I would go to like bookstores and I would buy books, and I thought, man, this is so exciting, all these books are so cool, but how am I just gonna read them? Like what am I gonna do with them? And I didn't really know. And now I'm at a point where I have some fun ideas that I thought I would share. I've had to get more creative than just like, I'm going to read this book, because I see kids once every 8 school days or every 7 school days this year for only 45 minutes. That's not a lot of time. So all of my time with students is really precious to me, and I really want to spend as much time as I can like actually singing, saying, dancing, playing, creating. And so I don't have a ton of time to devote to just reading a book just for the sake of reading it, even though that's a really great thing. So I've come up with some other ideas on how you can integrate books in really effective ways, and I wanted to share those with you. So the first thing is, of course, you can just read the book. If you have a book that fits right in with a theme that you're sharing or a specific time of year, or you really wanted to highlight one person, you can just read the book, and that's great. So for example, I just got this new book called My Name is Celia, about Celia Cruz. I shared another book about Celia Cruz a couple weeks ago. This is another one that I just got in the mail this week. And it's a really, really fun book, a gorgeous book. It tells the life of Celia Cruz. It has really amazing pictures. What's really fun is it has the whole page in English, and then it has the exact same thing in Spanish. So if you wanted to read just certain things, you could. If you wanted to read all of it in English and then attempt to read in Spanish, or to read in Spanish, you could do that. But what's really cool is it tells the story of Celia Cruz, who was an icon in the salsa world, and it talks about how she grew up, what inspired her, a little bit about her life, and how she really came into her own, which is a really fascinating story. It's especially great. It's especially great for Hispanic Heritage or Hispanic History Month. But also just to highlight a different musician and a different kind of music, a different genre that maybe we don't always get to in the elementary music curriculum. So you could just read the book. And there are some books that are great for highlighting highlighting musicians and their biographies. I'll show a couple more of those in just a second. You could also read the book if you have a specific song that goes with it. So Los Pollitos, I showed this book I think maybe last week. But this is a really fun book. It's really a song for young children as they're growing up. It's sort of like a nursery rhyme for kids, but this one is fun because it has some pop-up elements to it, and I know I shared this before. But if you have a song that goes along, this is great to integrate stories like this because it really catches kids' attention. And so these are fun to just read it or to sing the book, instead of just reading it, to sing it as a song or to have as an illustration if you're teaching the song. But you can also use them as sort of a connection point. I shared this as well in other videos, but in this book, it talks about, this is poems about all different kinds of dance, all different kinds of movement from all around the world. And so Feel the Beat is a great way to sort of give a starting point. If you're going to talk about different genres of dance, if you're going to talk about different cultures, you can introduce that culture by talking about the dances and the music and the culture that comes from whatever country or whatever area you're talking about. So for example, in this book, you could talk about cha-cha, you could talk about what that is, how to cha-cha, the sort of dance, and then that could lead to a conversation about dance or music. There's another great example. Let me see if I can find it here. Samba. If you're going to be talking about Brazil, if you're going to talk about, I don't know why you talk about festival in elementary music, but you could, you're going to talk about Portuguese language, you could use this sort of as a jumping off point. There's another one in here I wanted to show, if I can find it. Argentine tango. If you wanted to talk about that or make a connection point to Argentina, or you had a folk song from Argentina you wanted to bring in, this is another way you could make that connection. So I just shared about sort of 3 different ways to use books. If you just want to read them, you just want to use them in class, you could use it as to tell a story, you could use it to show a musician biography. If there's a song connection, you could use that, or you could use that book, use that poem, use that idea to connect different parts of your lesson. So Feel the Beat's a great example of that. If you have a folk song from one area and then you want to go to a movement example, or you want to go to a movement activity, this could be sort of your connection point. So those are ways you can use them in the classroom, but I'm so limited on time in my classroom that I want to have other ways to use the books. And also I spent money on these books, so I want to use them as much as I can and really get as much use out of it as I can. So I also have sent out an email to the homeroom teachers in my school, and I've said, hey, it's Hispanic Heritage Month. A really great way, authentic way to make that connection is to talk about the culture that comes from Hispanic-speaking countries or from Hispanic cultures. I have all of these really great books that highlight, artist profiles from those countries, musician profiles from those countries. I have these great books that talk about songs from those countries. If you want to borrow some of these books, let me know. If your grade level wants to borrow a book, or if you want to bring 2 classes together and do a read aloud, I've got some books that would be really helpful. So I sent out that email to my grade levels, and I sort of shared, like, here are like 6 books that I've got that I maybe won't be able to connect in my classroom in this month, but if you'd like to use them, they're there for you if you want them. And I got a couple teachers who've already emailed me back and said, like, yes, I'd love to use this on such and such a day, or it'd be so cool if we could connect this to this other thing we're talking about. And so opening up those lines of communication to grade level teachers shows them, one, that you want to collaborate, and also shows them that you have cool resources that they could possibly use. And it opens up that line of communication. My first grade team emailed me and said, yes, we'd like to do that in 2 weeks. But actually next week, we're doing a song, or we're doing a thing, it's a state standard, we have to talk about America the Beautiful. Do you have any books or resources we could use for that? We didn't even think to ask you. And I was like, you didn't even think to ask me? I'm the music teacher. But I was like, yeah, of course. And so I had a couple books that I used for my sub-tub, or I had in my classroom library, and I pulled those out and I sent them down and said, how else can I help with that? It's not really grade level appropriate to be singing that in first grade, but let me see if I can find some more resources, and I pulled some more things to send down with first grade. So that's sort of me making connections with other teachers in my building, and I emailed that. I just emailed out and said, hey, I have these books. If we can make a connection, if you want to borrow them and read them, what else can we do? I also started to make connections with my specials area team. And so I have in my building 2 PE teachers who they co-teach, but they take a huge number of kids at a time in the gym. 2 PE teachers, a STEM lab teacher, an art teacher, and then we have sort of an odd thing called an iPad lab. It was really cool and innovative about 8 or 9 years ago when it was first started. And now some people are like, well, what do you do all the day on iPad? They actually do really cool things. The iPad lab teacher takes a lot of content they're doing in their classroom and sort of expands upon it in ways that those classroom teachers don't always have the option to do. And so she does some of those exploratory activities and connection activities that those classroom teachers don't get to do. And one of the things she'll do is, take an app and say, we're learning about how to create a video, but we're going to do it based on, the regions of Georgia, which is a standard in several of our grades. Or we're going to do it on regions of the United States. Or we're going to do it on fossil fuels, or, exports from Georgia, or whatever. And so she takes those things that they're learning in the class and sort of creates a project around it based on the iPads, which is really cool. There are a lot of really cool things she can do. A lot of the time, though, that means that they're doing projects, and some kids will finish ahead of others, some kids will be slower, and she sort of has to have some things that kids can do to fill time. So one of the things that she does is she has like a little menu of, well, there's this app you can try, there's this app you can try, you can redo this activity from before. And one of the things that she has for students is she has a set of QR codes. And so she has these QR codes, and she has books, really, because there's Storyline online. There are a lot of YouTube videos where kids can go and actually see books being read to them, and sort of like in a read aloud format, but like read aloud on demand. Well, I knew that, and I went over and said, hey, I have these great books that I have for Hispanic Heritage or Hispanic History Month. I always keep trying to say Hispanic Heritage Month. Hispanic History Month. Could we integrate those into your, if you have time, QR codes? And she was like, well, yeah, of course. So I sat down, I looked on YouTube, and I found there's a really cool read aloud for My Name is Celia, and there's another really cool one for Los Pollitos. It's not really a read aloud, but it's sort of a video that connects with it. So all I had to do was I found the link, I found an image of the front of the book, and then I made a QR. There are a ton of websites where you can go to make QR codes, and QR stands for quick response. So the cool thing about QR codes is if you hold your iPad on camera mode and it sees this, or there are sometimes like Android phones or other phones have like a QR reader app. If you look at that, it'll just pop open a link to a website. Well, I've linked in the YouTube videos that are connected to these books. So when kids are in that downtime or have a few seconds, or minutes, they can click on here, they can load up the video, and then they can watch as the book is being read through. So the iPad Lab teacher, Julie, was like, that's really awesome. What else can we do? There were a couple books that I didn't have QR code, there weren't Read Aloud videos for. Well, you can jump on an iPad or you can jump on your phone and you can record yourself sitting and reading a book. You can even just have the video trained on the book, and you can really quickly create a video that you can then put into your cloud, your district cloud storage. If you have OneDrive or if you have Google Drive, you can put it there and create a QR code that kids can link to. You can put it on YouTube if you want to make it a restricted video that only you can access if you have the URL, so it's not just floating around on the internet. But you can change the settings, the privacy settings on YouTube, so that only kids can access it if they have the link. So then if they have the QR, they can go and access that. So all the books that I had, I either found a video for that was already available, or I made one of myself actually reading the book so that kids can see these books in action. And it's cool because she's already sort of pushing it out with the students, and I have a couple kids coming up and saying, Mr. Rao, I read a music book in iPad Lab. I'm like, oh, cool, that's so awesome that you did that. And they just are so excited about it, and then they actually see the physical book on the shelf in my classroom, and they get even more excited about it. So it's another fun way to make that connection. And like I said, this is something that she already does with other books throughout the year. And so this is a really fun one that I just changed the picture in the QR code to make it specific to what I'm doing in my class. Let me show you a couple of those videos. So I see Paige on Facebook is saying, have you had success finding read-alouds in Spanish? Yes, some in Spanish. Most of my students don't speak Spanish, and so these books, most of the books that I'm showing you today are bilingual and have both an English and a Spanish version on each page. So here's the English part, here's the Spanish part. A lot of the videos I show, the person who's reading it is a Spanish speaker, and they'll read the English part, and then we'll sometimes reference the Spanish part or read part of it, but the whole video is not in Spanish, it's mostly in English. Let me show you a couple of these videos that I found. So one of the read-alouds is this one. I hope you can see this. And YouTube, ooh, look at me, YouTube, I can zoom you in. Okay. So this first one, we'll see if you can hear it.
Hello students, this is Mrs. Santiago once again. I'm going to read you a story.
She does a tiny, tiny little intro, and then I'll just jump to the part where she reads the book.
Is Celia, The Life of Celia Cruz, written by Monica Brown and illustrated by Rafael Lopez. Sugar, my voice is strong, smooth and sweet. I will make you feel like dancing. Close your eyes and listen. My voice feels like feet skipping on cool, wet sand, like running under a waterfall, like rolling down a hill. My voice climbs and rocks and dips and flips with the sounds of congas, beating and trumpets blaring. Boom, 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 beat the congas. Clap, 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 go the hands. Shake, 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 go the hips. I am the queen of salsa, and I invite you to come dance with me.
So what I love about this video is that in between the different pages, while she's reading, it integrates some actual authentic music in the background so that kids can sort of get that feel. So you're not just talking about salsa music, but you're actually sort of experiencing that. So that's really cool. Another one that I wanted to share is the Los Pollitos book that I have. On the back. It actually, and let's see right here. If I can show you, right here in the corner it says free sing-along app and activities. So you can see that there too, Instagram, free sing-along app and activities, and it even says on the back, subscribe on YouTube. So I followed their YouTube channel, and here's what I found. Here's the song. Remember, Los Pollitos is a famous folk song in Spanish. So let's see what we found.
Canticos.
And it's a Nick Jr. thing. Surprise, Nickelodeon.
Hola. Hello. Llegaste justo a tiempo. Mamá, mamá. Los pollitos van a nacer. Los pollitos dicen pío, 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 cuando tienen hambre, cuando tienen frío. La gallina.
So as you can sort of tell, it's going through, it's singing the whole thing in Spanish, and it does the whole song, which is really cool. And then I love this part.
Otra vez.
Again.
In English.
Little chickies squeal, pío, 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 when they get so cold and when they want a meal. Mama goes and gets.
So it's the exact same song, it's just in English. So I sort of love that. This page, the Canticos YouTube page, it also has Los Pollitos translated into Mandarin. It has it translated into a couple different languages. So if you wanted to make that transfer, you could do that too. But both of these videos are free online. I especially love this one because it sings the whole song and does the whole song with some interjecting language in Spanish and then does a version in English. There are so many things that you can find that are already pre-made for you. So people who have, on their own time done a read aloud, or like Kelsey's mentioning here on Facebook, don't forget that some books have free song downloads that will accompany it. That's really great to remember because a lot of these things you don't have to invent the wheel. All you have to do is find the wheel and share it with your kids. So these things, like I said, these go into the QR that I'm doing with my iPad teacher, but also I have plans to do more with them. So these videos that are available, I thought, it'd be great to have that for a substitute teacher lesson, to have where she can hold the book or pull up some things or read part of it and then show part of the video. Or we could have, I could put it on one of the things that my district is doing for snow days, for inclement weather days. They want us to have a plan on our learning management system, which is like Blackboard or Canvas or whatever it is that maybe your district uses. They want us to have an activity or an assignment that kids can do at home. And I was really struggling, like, what's an authentic thing that kids can do that it's musical. And so some of these videos are really great because kids at home can absolutely access, if they can access the assignment, they can access YouTube, they can get to these videos, or I can embed the videos in Canvas and have those there so that kids can watch the video, listen, follow along, maybe answer some questions about it. But that's something that I can have online available for students if we have a snow day or just if we need an assignment on the learning management system like Canvas or Blackboard, whatever your district might use. I also thought it'd be so much fun to take these QR codes and just post them in the hallway. It'd be fun to send them home in parent newsletters with different grade levels and say, here's a song we're working on, or here's a famous musician we learned about, and a video you can watch at home. Parents are always looking for those videos that their kid can watch that they know are safe, that are educational, and this is a great way to make a connection with parents in that regard. And one more thing, you don't have to just do that with just Hispanic Heritage Month books. Here are a couple other books that I already have prepared that I'm going to use later on in the year. There's this really fun book called What Charlie Heard, about Charles Ives. And this one is going to be so cool to add in some music. I'm excited to look for videos and things that go along with this. I've already got a couple books that I know that I'm going to use. I used Before John Was a Jazz Giant, about John Coltrane. That was one I used in my sub-tub last year, but I'm excited to try and find videos and things to go along with it to put in the sub-plan or to just have available. And then I also have this book called Dizzy, which I didn't really get to use much in classroom about Dizzy Gillespie just because it was so long and it was sort of, it was just hard, like, when am I going to integrate this? And so this is another one that I can either put in a sub-tub, put in an inclement weather assignment, send home or recommend or let 5th grade teachers borrow or whatever I want to do. It's a great another one to have in the pipeline ready to go if I need it. So all of these books that I've talked about, I have listed on my Amazon page if you want to just see them, if you want to go try and find them in a bookstore, if you want to find them online. But I put them all in one place. Amazon is nice that they give me a way to put all of them in a list together. So they're there if you want them, and that's in the links page. There's a whole page just for Hispanic History Month books. There's some for Black History Month books. There are just some musician biography books. There's so many things you can do. But think about how, of course you can read it in class, but what else could you do? Could you find that video or create that video of a read aloud? Could you put it in your subtub? Could you just have it on your shelf? Sometimes, I mean, I even just had this on my shelf, and my art teacher walked in, and she grew up in Colombia, and she was like, wait, are you talking about Celia Cruz? What? And like she was just amazed, and I didn't say anything about it. I just had it on the shelf, and that sparked such a really amazing conversation with a colleague. So just even having them out is something that's really important. Even if you don't get a chance to read every single one every year, get the book, look for the resources, and find ways to connect. I hope that gives you a few more ideas about how you can use the book. I always stressed about like, oh, I've got these cool books, but I don't always get to read them. And now I feel like I've got some really great ideas and ways that I can integrate books in authentic ways and use them more successfully with all my students. Okay, and like I said, if you want links to any of these books or the videos or the things I've sort of talked about, they're on the links page. There's a whole links page full of, or Amazon links page with all of the books that I'm talking about. It's Hispanic Heritage Month and a couple more I just found. And so if you're interested in that, if you can't find the books I'm talking about, send me a message, but a lot of them are there. Okay, I have plenty of time to talk to you a little bit about 4th grade. I'm so excited about 4th grade. I've been talking in the last couple of videos about primary grade lessons, so I wanted to talk about an upper grades lesson and some of the things that I'm doing with it. So when kids come in, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they go to their dot spot. I have a carpet with all of these different dots on it set in rows, and so they come in, they find their spot in their seating chart spot, and the very first thing that I do is I have my roster, and I just look visually from my roster to the carpet, and if somebody's missing from their dot, then I know that they're absent. The kids are sort of trained that when they come in, they go right to their dot spot, and that I have to use that as a quick just assessment to see if they're all here or not. And that's just what I do for checking for the roster for their role. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. And I just, after I'm done with all of that, I just check and I say, so we're missing Charlie, and we're missing Jalea, and we're missing, and I'll just say out loud who's not here, because then the kids can usually confirm, yeah, he checked out, yep, she's, in the nurse or whatever, and that's a really quick way to do it. So then after I do that quick sort of attendance check, I say, great, repeat after me, and I do this. And that's like what everyone starts with, right? But I never end there because I get sick if that's all we do. So then I do something else, and they repeat, and then I do it like this. And they do it loud, and they do it loud. In the previous lesson, we talked about forte and piano. We we defined what that meant. They know that piano is quiet, that forte is loud, and we showed them where it was on the vocabulary wall. I showed them that for each grade, I have a little box up by my whiteboard that has the vocabulary of the minute or vocabulary of the week, whatever, the like important vocabulary for each grade level. I showed them where that was. I showed them where it was on the big word wall, and we talked about that in the previous lesson. So in this lesson, I just do a couple basic echoes, and then I do a loud one and I do a quiet one, and I say, describe what just happened. And kids pop up their hands and they say, oh, one was forte, one was piano. Perfect. Okay, where can you find those words in the room? They point to the vocabulary box, they point to the word wall. So this is just a check to make sure that they know where to find the answers, so that I'm not spending time later on in the year being like, this is the word wall. Oh, this is I call it the vocabulary wall. This is our vocabulary wall. So I don't have to do that later. This is my time so that when they're looking for words, they're looking for answers, they know where to look. Right. It's also great because a couple years ago I had an administrator who would come in and would like pull a kid and would say, okay, what's your I can for the day? And what vocabulary are you working on? And blah, blah, blah. And she would like ask like random kids that. So I learned at the beginning of the year, I was like, that's so mean. If you saw kids every day, of course they'd know where all that stuff is, but like what if a kid's sick or what if kids, whatever. Like my kids, I see them like once every other week. Maybe they won't know where to look for that. So now at the beginning of the year, I always make a point with all my classes to like use a part of the lesson where they have to use something from the vocabulary wall, or at least I point it out or whatever, so that they like know where those anchors are in the room to find the answers. They know where the I cans are, even if I don't always reference them. They know where that is, right? So that's one of the reasons I do this. But also, I have an extension. So we talked about forte and piano in the last lesson. So we quickly describe it. We quickly find it on the wall in this lesson. And then I say, you know, there are some composers, and a composer is someone who creates music, right? There are some composers. Oh, you've been composers when we write down music. Okay, well, there are some composers who are going so quickly that they go, I don't have time. I'm doing all these notes and all these rests. I don't have time to write out the whole word forte. I just don't have time. And so when they're writing out, instead of writing out the whole word forte, sometimes they just put this. And sorry, I know with the FaceTime camera this is backwards. But they see this fancy F. And I say it's sort of like an initial. Actually, what I said this week was I said abbreviation, and a kid said, oh, it's like the first initial. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what it is. So I've been saying both. I've been saying you can abbreviate, sort of, or really it's the first initial of the word forte, and it's just the F. Oh, and I don't know why they say I don't have time to write out the whole word forte. If they're going to put this fancy schmancy cursive F, that probably took just as long to make as it would have been to write out the whole word forte. But whatever, they just put the word F, and F stands for forte, and forte stands for, and the kids go, loud. Right. And you know what else? Some composers go, oh, I don't have time to write out the whole word piano. Can you imagine? I don't have enough time to do that. I'm so busy writing notes and rest. So I'm just going to put this. And again, sorry, the FaceTime camera, I know it's backwards. But they're like, kids are like, oh, it's the letter P, and P stands for piano, and piano stands for, and the kids go, quiet. Right. So if you see a P, you know it means quiet. If you see an F, you know it means forte. Right? And they're like, oh yeah, great. And then I point out that on my word wall, the word wall card actually has the word forte, and then it has the icon that looks like this. It has the fancy F, and the one for piano has the fancy P. It has the sort of script version that you'd see in printed music. And they go, oh, okay. So I say, great, all right, now turn my words into claps. Ta, 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 and they clap. Ta, 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 ta. Great. And they go. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Let me try again. So I say, turn my words into claps. Ta, 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 dee, ta, and they go. Great. Now do it this loud. Ta, 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 dee, ta. Clap, 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 clap. Great. Do it this loud. Ta, dee, ta, ta, dee, ta. And actually, so I left some of my stuff at school, so I was like, what am I going to do for this video? So I actually have the F and the P in a 3-ring binder. And then I realized, like, oh, I could have used that at school. That's sort of a fun thing, too. So anyway, so on one side it has the piano, one side it has the forte, right? Well, okay, so then I say, great, now it's time for a quiz. I'm not going to show you the P or the F until, like, the very last second. So watch really carefully. Ta, 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 dee, ta. And then they clap, right? Ta-dee-ta, ta-dee-ta. And I hold it up at just the last second, and they get a chance to see either the F or the P, and then they have to clap quiet or loud. And then I'm so mean because I did at school I had 2 whiteboards, and on one I had a P and on one I had an F, so I'd hold them up both next to me. And then I would be tricky, and I'd hold, the P up here on my right, and then I'd hold the F on the other side, and then I would hold the P on the left and the F on the right, and I'd switch them so that they're not always seeing the same letter in the same place, just to mess with them. And then I have fun with this. I just mess with kids. So I'll give them a pattern, and I'll hold up the F, and I'll give them a pattern and hold up the P, and then an F, and P, and F, and then F, and then P, and then P, and then P, and then P, and then F, and then F, 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 F. So like I'm just being silly, but they like that they have to react in the moment. They see it sort of as a game. My favorite thing to do is to do like piano, forte, piano, forte, piano, forte, and they get into this lull where they're like, oh, it's a pattern. He's just going to keep going back and forth. Piano, forte, piano, forte, piano, piano. And the other day I had a kid who was like, it's a pattern. And he stopped looking and he started tying his shoe. And so, I'm saying, turn my words into claps. Ta, 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 dee, ta, they clap. Ta, dee, ta, dee, ta, they clap. And he's like, well, it's a pattern. It's going to be quiet, loud, quiet, loud. So I notice he's not watching. And I do quiet, and I do loud, and I do quiet, and then I do quiet again. And he claps it as loud as he possibly can, and I'm sitting here holding this up knowing that he has not seen it, and he goes And all the other kids go, and I go, and he looks up and he goes, I'm so sorry. And I was like, and he goes, I'm so sorry. So it's just so much fun. The whole thing probably takes 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And we talk about piano and forte. We talk about the symbol that goes along with it. We see where it is on the word wall. We identify all of that. They get a chance to practice, and it is hilariously fun. But most of all, it's just a quick and easy way to, run through that vocabulary and get that understanding. So, like I said, I do it. I have one whiteboard that has an F on it, one that has a P on it. I just, use it like that. But this 3-ring binder works sort of well, actually. And then if you really want to confuse them, you just go like this and hold up both, and they will have no idea what to do. So it's actually, I did that once. It was actually fun. And I did ta, 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 dee, ta, and held it up. And they did 2 beats forte, 2 beats piano. And I was like, well, the kids who could figure it out did that. The other ones just sat there and were like, I don't know. But anyway, I do that with 3rd, 4th, and 5th because it's a good review at the beginning of the year, and it's fun to sort of apply the dynamics and apply that idea to what they're doing. And also, it's a really quick response of what they need to do because they just have to quickly see the initial, the first letter, and then have to react to it. So that's fun to do with kids. So then I do a song called Closet Key, and I bet a lot of you know it. And I'll just quickly. I've lost the farmer's dairy key. I'm in this lady's garden. Do let me out. I'm in this lady's garden. I'm singing it for myself in F. For kids, I do it in C. I've lost the farmer's dairy key. I'm in this lady's garden. Do let me out. I'm in this lady's garden. I just accompany on ukulele. But I tell them a story, and I say, many, many years ago, in England, they had these big, huge stone walls, and they had inside the stone walls, they had these amazing, fancy gardens. I go into storytelling about Secret Garden, basically. There are parts where there are beautiful flowers, prize-winning flowers, and then there are parts where there are vegetables. There are some parts with just fountains, and some parts with, I don't know. I tell them this sort of elaborate story, and then I talk about the poor gardener who came in one day to garden around this beautiful, amazing garden that has these huge stone walls around it to keep people out or to keep, whatever. And so I talk about it, and then, he set down the keys and went and gardened all day, and he mowed and he watered and he, pulled weeds or whatever, and he sat in the swing, and then he goes back to try and get out, and he's locked in. And then I sing the song, I've lost the farmer's dairy key, I'm in this lady's garden, do let me out, I'm in this lady's garden. So they think that's funny. I've never been able to figure out how to explain the do let me out until I was getting ready for the Downton Abbey movie, and I was thinking about how people in England sometimes speak, and they don't say please bring me that cupcake. They'd be like, do bring me that cupcake. Or they don't say please take that blanket over. They'd say, do take the blanket into the other room. And so then I say, instead of saying, please let me out, he goes, do let me out. And so then they're like, oh, yeah. And last year when I did this song, every class was like, ha ha, do. But this time they're like, oh, we're refined. So it went from last year when they're talking about poop to this year when they're like, oh, we're refined, we're British. Do let me out. Anyway, it's hilarious, but somehow that made it stick for kids. So there are a couple things you can do with this song. I tend to use a lesson plan from a book called This American is Apple Pie, which is by Jeff Krisky and Randy DeLellis, who are the creators of Game Plan. I shared with that book last week. It's a really, really amazing lesson plan because in that lesson plan, they include ideas on how to do a rock, paper, scissors game. So I'm not going to give that away because that's in their book, and it's a really wonderful lesson, and you should all go buy that book, or if you have that book, you should pick it up and see how they do it. It's a super, super fun game, but they include rock, paper, scissors, and there's some traveling and switching and stuff. So it's a super fun version of that. I also found a version online where let's see, I'm trying to think, it was the Treble Classroom, I think was the blog I was looking at, and they did a game where they had skeleton keys that that were found on Amazon or found in the closet or whatever. So these big skeleton keys, and it was one of those games where you have to like hide it and pass it, and the kid in the middle has to try and figure out like who has the key. And so that's a sort of a fun game, and you can do that with really a lot of different grades. You're probably most successful with older grades. You'd probably be successful with fourth grade most, but you could probably do it with third grade, maybe second if they're sneaky, I don't know. But to have the actual skeleton key, which sort of connects it to that like old idea of the old door and the old key and the old garden, whatever, that's sort of fun too. So that's another fun thing you could do. Another great source to find this song and a lot of other songs, if you look on the Kodai, I can't think of the official name, but it's on the Holy Names University website. I want to say like the Kodai Center, but I can't exactly remember. I know it's already listed on the links page. But they have so many songs. They have the sources. They have the extra verses. They have all this stuff, and they have this like crazy game where like kids stand in a circle and like sort of Red Rover style. One kid tries to like break out on the "Do Let Me Out," just like run through kids' hands or like run under their hands or whatever. And I just like I'm sitting there reading that. I'm like, I'll do that on field day, but there's like no way I can do that in my room. I'd have so many collisions. I'd have to break out the ice packs. But maybe if your kids are more tame than mine, that would work. But that specific website is great for the history, for the extra verses, not just for this song, but a lot of different songs. So check that out, but that's on the links page. And page says Kodai Holy Names University. I know it's Holy Names, but I can't remember if it's the Kodai Center or the Kodai... I can't remember the repository. I don't remember what exactly it's called. So if you can figure that out, let me know. But it is at the Holy Names University, and that's linked on the links page. But there are a lot of really fun things you can do with that there. So then we play the game from As American as Apple Pie. They have so much fun with it. And my idea is in the next lesson, this will be like our starter activity. And it'll be the thing that we do for like 10 minutes really quickly. And it'll be just a refresher of what we learned. And we'll try that next time. But in this lesson, we learn it. Then I move on to another favorite song that I've loved, that I've used for years, called Chicken on a Fence Post, which I learned from my amazing friend, Dina Byers, who taught my level 1 ORF, and it was amazing, and it has forever been one of my favorite lessons. So what I do to talk about it is I talk about how the American Folk Song Collection, thank you so much, Jennifer, for making that connection there. So what I talk about is how like I make that connection between the idea of the garden with the big stone walls around it to what was happening in America, when settlers were moving out into westward expansion, or when they were settling the area of Georgia we live in, or whatever. When farmers first got here, they would have their farmhouse, and they would have fences. And why would we have fences? And then, of course, I pull out my rooster puppet, and the rooster puppet gets very involved in the class, and I say, why would maybe they have fences? And a kid, I let kids answer, and, kids say, like, well, they had fences to keep the animals in. The chicken's like, bark, 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 yep, yep, yep. Okay. So, and then the rooster's like watching kids as they do it, right? And so then some kids will say, like, well, they had fences to keep other people from coming in to take their animals. And the chicken like gets a little worried about that, like, people. Yeah, so people don't come and steal the animals, right? And then another kid will say, like, well, they had, fences to keep out the foxes, and the chicken's like, and then hides. And then I'll like coax it out or whatever, and then he'll say, or, they had fences to keep away the wolves, and the chicken will be like, like, so they think that's funny, but it's fun to like actually make those connections about why farmers would put up fences. There are dual reasons, right? So then I talk about I've got a song about a chicken that stands on a fence. It's a really fun song. Oh my gosh, let me tell you. It's a song about fences and fence posts, and I put up a picture on a board of a chicken on a fence post. And then I sing this song. It's chicken on a fence post, can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence post, can't dance Joe. Chicken on a fence post, can't dance Josie. Hello, Susan Brownie-o. you know what? In that song, I heard some kids' names. Could you listen for the names? Listen carefully. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Joe. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Josie. Hello, Susan Brownie-o. And I sort of slow it down in theory so that they can hear the names, right? But I also slow it down because I'm realizing, I taught this last year, I taught it the year before. My kids this year have really difficulties with the rhythm. So I have to slow it down at first for them. So I slow it down, so you can hear the names, but really so that you can get the language out. So they identify the names, Josie, Joe, Susan Brown, okay? And then I say, great. And the first words are sort of like a tongue twister. Say, chicken on a fence post. Chicken on a fence post. That's just sort of hard for them to get out. Chicken on a fence post. Chicken on a fence post. Can't dance Josie. Can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence post. Can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence. I actually I talk back and forth with them, sort of doing, phrase by phrase to get them to just say the words, and then we'll sing the words. But I took for the first class I did this with, I took for granted that they would just get it, and they didn't. So I stepped back and went back a step for them to just say the words, and realized with my kids this year, saying chicken on a fence post was hard. And it is 16th notes, right? So it's a quicker rhythm, but actually just getting out the syllables was difficult for them. So we went back and did the words first, and then we did the singing version. So they eventually learned chicken on a fence post can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Joe. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Josie. Hello, Susan Brownie-o. Now I have it pitched in F, and that works pretty well for the singing because this song, it goes up and it goes below D. So it goes below and it goes above. So to pitch it in F is nice, but it's also nice because I can play that really easily to accompany on ukulele. In the next lesson, when I bring in instruments, we can put it in F pentatonic. So F is a really great place to do this song. So then I say, great, well now you get to help me out because this chicken wants to see how this is going to work. So stand up and make a class-size circle, and you need to make yourself into a big class-size fence. Great. So they stand up, they make a big circle, and I say, ooh, good, if you're the fence and you're connecting, your hands are connected, take hands with the person next to you, or fourth graders, they don't want to do that. So, okay, or take the wrist of the person next to you, or connect with them somehow. So you're the fence, you have to be connected. And then each one of you is a post. Each one of you is the post of the fence. So then I walk, as they sing it, I walk around, and the chicken sits on their head, because if they're the post, the chicken is on the fence post. So the chicken goes, chicken on a fence post can't dance Josie. Chicken on a fence post can't dance Joe. And he stops on their head, right? So that's funny for them. They think that's a hoot. And so then I say, okay, great. Now the chicken believes that you're a very good fence. I put the chicken in the middle, and I say, so there's the chicken. I'm the wolf. And I'm going to walk around your fence. And if I can get through to that chicken, I'm going to eat the chicken. So you got to make sure that your fence is closed and connected. So then they sing another time, and I walk all the way around the fence. Right, okay. So then I say, I've been teaching all day. I'm really tired. I've been looking for chickens for a long time. So I'm tired. So here, you know what? I'm going to make you a magical fence. This time, you do the moving. I'm just going to stay where I am. So I stay stationary, and then they have to rotate clockwise, and then they walk around the circle. So the circle is now moving. I'm standing, and I'm still looking for a hole in the fence, right? Whatever. It's just to keep your hands together. Okay, so then I say, oh, this chicken needs extra protection because there are some predators out and about. So I choose every fourth kid in the circle, and I say, if I tap you, let go of the person next to you and step forward. So I tap the kid, I move down forward, I tap the kid, I move down forward, I tap the kid. So then I have them, I say, if you stepped forward, you're going to be the inside circle. And if you're left on the outside, you're going to be the outside circle, because this chicken needs double circles, this chicken needs double fence protection. So make your two fences, right? Okay. And then we talk about concentric circles. We talk about what that means. I show them a picture of that because they don't understand. But, it's supposed to be in their math standards. Application of music, what? So we talk about that real quick. But then we move on. So the inside circle, outside circle. And we sing it again. I say, oh, I'm looking for holes. And so they sing, they do their thing. And then I say, ooh, to be really fancy, how about the outside circle? Keep going in the same direction. You're going to circle to the left, but inside circle, go the opposite direction. So now the outside circle is going circle to the left. The inside circle is going opposite direction. So they're going in contrary directions. It looks really cool, right? So then I say, all right, it's time to bring in the predators. I'm going to choose 2 wolves. 1 wolf and another wolf. Oh, but they're not working together, which is surprising because wolves usually work in packs, but not this time. So they're going to be trying to find their way into the middle of the circle. And they're going to go outside, and they're not going to know, but at the end of the song, the farmer is going to leave open a gate, and they're going to be able to get in. They won't know where it is because they're going to be out in the hallway. But at the end of the song, when we finish, we're going to open up the gates, and they're going to wait their way in. So then it's a race game, right? Racing through to try and figure out who gets to the inside. So it's a speed game. But they love it. They think it's hilarious, and I'm just out there with my ukulele playing along. At some point in the lesson, I have them do, sing through the song twice. So they're singing it twice every time. And we play around with that. So then eventually what happens is the chasing game works really great. Usually, and if the wolves get in, they race to the center. Whoever wins, just wins. But then what I have the 2 wolves do is I have each wolf find a replacement, and then that kid gets to be the wolf next, and then those wolves just rejoin the circles, if that makes sense. So like if I race, I was a wolf, then the next time I might choose Jackie, and Jackie will be a wolf, and I'll just take her spot in the circle or whatever. So it's sort of, you can rotate a little bit. What we eventually do is the song, you do it 2 times through. Well, the first time the circles rotate in a direction, and when the song repeats, they switch directions. So if you're on the outside circle, you're walking clockwise until the song repeats, and then you switch directions and walk counterclockwise. It's always hilarious to see that happen for the first time, because some kids will forget, and some kids do just fine. But also the eyes of the wolves, when those circles for the first time switch, the wolves are like they can't. It's so surprising to them, apparently. So, but it's just a super fun game, and this is one that they ask for over and over and over and over. I put my Folkmanis rooster puppet in the middle, but I know a lot of people who put like a silly rubber chicken in the middle, and I think that would be super fun too. What happens in the next lesson? So in my next lesson with 4th grade, we do Dairy Key to start as a really quick thing, and then I add in an Orff arrangement, an Orff version of this. There are a lot of different versions. There might even be one in the American as Apple Pie book that I talked about earlier. But it then translates to some kids will play on the instruments, and some kids will do the chase game and then the circles. And what we do in the next lesson is, if you were a wolf, you choose your replacement. Instead of just going into the circles, you then go play on an instrument before you cycle back into the game. So let me say that one more time. So if you are the wolf, you're one of the chasing kids, you race through, you try and find the chicken, right? When the song's over, when someone's eaten the chicken, right? So then, like, if I'm a wolf, I'll choose my replacement. That kid will go out in the hallway to be a wolf, and then I will go to the Orff instruments before I cycle back to the circle. It's sort of just a fun way to rotate through and to give kids chances to do lots of different things. And it's just like a super really fun game that kids love doing. And when they go to the Orff instruments on this time of year, I'm just having them sort of remember how to play the accompaniment pattern. So I just have them do the bourdon, but there are a lot of different Orff arrangements or different accompaniments they could do. But in my lesson, which is the next week lesson, that's all they're going to do, because we have other stuff to do in that lesson. So it's just a way to rotate onto the instruments, get more instrument experience, rotate kids through doing lots of different things. It looks really cool to administrators because some kids are chasing, some kids are fences, some kids are playing instruments. You have all different kids who get to be the gate. Like, everyone feels included, everyone's doing something different, they're singing, they're moving. You can pull the concentric circle thing and you have a math vocabulary, and you could, there's so many different elements to it. To admin, it looks really cool. To you, it's just a game that you've built slowly over time, but to admin, it looks really awesome. So, my chicken is a really fun part of this, and he sort of plays it out at the beginning. But of Of course, I use puppets for everything. But you can use this lesson throughout the year. My 5th graders still ask for it. It's a great one, just like Dairy Key, to have sort of in your pocket if you're like, well, we've got 10 minutes, or you got out of that assembly early, or whatever. It's nice to have lessons like this in your pocket ready to go in case you have that time at the end of class. So if you want, I talked about the Farmer's Dairy Key, I talked about Chicken on a Fence Post, I talked about a lot of resources that I used with them. On the links page, you'll find links to all of those. There's a link to where you can buy As American's Apple Pie from West Music. There's a link to where you can get skeleton keys if you want to use them for Farmer's Dairy Key. I'll put a link to well, I don't know if the Rooster Puppet is available anymore. He might be retired, but if I can find one, I'll put one on there. As always, if you as always, if you have a question and it's not on the links page or I didn't talk about it today, please leave a question in the comments because I will cycle back and I'll try and answer that. One of the ones that I know that someone mentioned that I didn't get a chance to cycle back was, how often do you see kids? I see kids for 45 minutes once every 7 school days. So the kids I saw today, I will not see until end of next week. Actually, maybe the following week. It depends on whether things get bumped or whatever in the schedule. So it's not very often. It works out to be about 20 times a year, which is not great. But I try and pack as much as I can, which is why in this lesson you saw me talking about vocabulary. You saw me do echoing. We were doing body percussion. We were doing hand clapping games. We're going to get in instruments the next time. As much as you can pack into the lessons, you do. In fact, I had a student observing for an elementary methods class this week, and at the end of one lesson she was like, a lot happens in these lessons. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, we don't have time not to do it. So I try and pack in as much as I can. But a lot of those things are linked if you want any of those resources. And if I didn't mention where you can get it, leave me those questions. Well, I'm excited. I'll see you hopefully next Monday. If you have any questions in between now and then, send me a message or leave me a comment or send me an email, and I'd love to try and connect with you there. I hope you have a great rest of your night and a great rest of your week with your students. Have so much fun. Try these lessons. See how they work. All right. Thanks, everyone.